today's show.
We debate the weekend's best road win, the Nuggets in San Antonio or the Blazers in OKC, and whether Joel Embiid should have been tossed.
We discuss the Celtics sweep, Russell Westbrook's next question routine, and the player who needs a playoffs reset.
And you'll be looking like Nick Nurse after you watch these weekend whoopsies.
It's Monday, April 22nd. The starter starts now.
Good evening, Sweet World, and welcome to The Starters, presented by Jack Daniel's Old No. 7 and Tennessee Honey. I'm Jay Skeets, and alongside me, as always, we got Tass Mellis, we got the Aussie Lee Ellis, and over yonder, that's the bearded one, that's Trey Kirby.
Hey-yo!
Hey-yo! Trey, what's up?
Well, I'm here at the internet looking for your best tweets at hashtag the starters. And guys, there were 11 playoff games this weekend, and the biggest star from all of them was this lady rocking an incredible bouffant hairdo. At Saturday's Game 3 in Utah. It's true what they say about the volume in the Jazz's arena. I mean, the air is thin, but the hair is not. Seriously though, this woman took over Twitter on Saturday, and it brings us to today's question. Who is your favorite random NBA fan? I'm talking about the fans who just happen to be there. Like this kid who was a Nets fan back in the day. Everybody called him Super Happy Nets fan for the way he celebrated a huge shot from Darren Williams. Woo! I love this kid. That's why it was great to see him 3 years later, still with great seats in Brooklyn, cheering on after a big Brandon Knight miss. I love you, Super Happy Nets fan, but we want to hear from you. So let us know on Twitter, who's your favorite random NBA fan? Send them to us at hashtag the starters. We'll hear from you later.
All right, get your tweets in.
Get your hair
I can look
out,
at that
baby.
hair all night long. All right, on tonight's show, we're going to talk about the Celtics sweep, Westbrook versus the media. We got Lily's very solid play. But let's start tonight with a little What You Got, playoffs edition. Everybody knows how this works by now, so Trey, take it away.
All 8 road teams won games this weekend, but a couple of them were bigger than the others. The Nuggets were victorious in San Antonio for the first time since 2012 as their series with the Spurs is tied 2-2. And yesterday, the Blazers beat the Thunder in OKC to take a commanding 3-1 lead as the series heads back. Portland, guys, what was the more impressive road win? The Nuggets or the Blazers? Would you got?
This may be the toughest question in Starters history. It's very, very difficult. Let's start with the Portland Trailblazers and specifically C.J. McCollum, because we've talked about Dame outplaying Russ and Paul George not playing to his MVP capabilities quite yet, but nobody expected this from C.J. McCollum.
Agreed.
He's above 20 points in each of the 4 games so far.
He's on fire.
Yeah, and he sealed this baby because Damian Lillard did his thing, taking over in the third quarter.
Yep.
But he wasn't really there in the fourth quarter. Dame only had an offer, from the field, and this guy went off 13 points in that fourth quarter, 27 game high for them. If they can just balance each other out, that's what you sort of expected to happen with the OKC Thunder. But C.J. McCollum coming in with that knee injury, nobody expected him to be this good.
Yeah, he missed 11 of the final 13 games. And we were like, what type of McCollum are they even going to get here? And we didn't expect this one, which is big reason why a lot of us
Defense, offense, it was great.
Yeah, he's been great.
But the start of that fourth quarter, Dame was on the bench, and the Thunder had just gone on a big run. And that was a really crucial moment. I thought Terry Stotts showed a lot of faith in his team without Lillard on the court. And McCollum did step up, and he sort of showed that leadership that they needed from somebody outside Dame. We know Dame's great. He had a great third quarter again and kept his team ahead, but it was CJ and that sort of second unit that kept them going. But I think it's got to be, for me, the Denver Nuggets, because on Saturday, when they're down 2-1 in that series in San Antonio, this is a classic sort of situation where you see the younger team basically get themselves into a hole. But Mike Malone made that lineup change, brings Torrey Craig in for Will Barton, and it worked. It didn't work straight away. It didn't work in that first quarter, but once they got a bit of a rhythm going, Denver, for the first time in this series, looked like they were actually in control of a game, I think. The first 3 games, even though they won game 2, that was a bit of a lucky break for them. But once they got ahead in that second half, and Torrey Craig was huge, hitting big threes, playing defense, Denver looked like they're actually going to run away with this game, and that's what they were able to do, and reclaim home court advantage. I think that's key here, because if they go down 3-1, they're not beating the San Antonio Spurs from there. Now, best of 3, 2 games potentially in Denver. This really does shape up to at least give Denver a better chance of getting out of this series when it didn't look like that early on.
You guys are making great cases for both of these. I am torn. I think I am going to go with the Blazers, even though you're pointing it out here, Lee. Like, the Nuggets were the one, they would have been down 3-1 if they didn't get that win. So that was huge. But the Blazers have just been in control of this series. They really have. It's led by their stars in Dame and CJ. But then, even when the Thunder has gotten the ball out of their hands every once in a while, You've had guys step up. In Game 4, it was Al-Farouq Aminu.
Yep.
He was huge. We've seen Cantor earlier in the season have a great Game 1. Harkless has been solid. So, I think the Thunder should have done a better job of getting the ball out of Dame and CJ's hands a little bit more. I know easier said than done, but I will admit those guys have stepped up and proven me wrong, and that's why they have this 3-1 lead going back to Portland, where they've got to feel in control. I know anything can still happen, but they're feeling good. And I kept thinking, Lee, watching the Blazers, you kept talking last week about sort of this weird, almost glazed over look that Lillard has right now, where he is just so locked in. Even when he's struggling at times, he just has this air about him where he's like, no, we're going to win this season and exercise some demons that we've had. And you could see it.
He got in foul trouble last night as well, and a couple of those fouls were pretty bad calls, but he didn't let that upset him or lose his composure. And again, after that red-hot third quarter, not doing anything in the fourth, he didn't let that affect other parts of his game. He was still the leader that his team needed. He's been so impressive so far in the series. And, Enes Kanter, again, hasn't had the same scoring that he had early on in the series, but some of those screens he set for Lillard, like there's some big,
he's a big
strong,
dude.
Exactly. And
he's playing defense.
He's flexing his muscles a lot, which we thought coming in may have been a weakness, but it hasn't been the case.
Tough one, Trey. What's the answer?
I'm going with the Nuggets. They hadn't won in San Antonio since 2012. I didn't even have gray hair back then. Just kidding, just not as much. Anyways, what's beef? Beef is when you need 2 ejections to go to sleep. That's exactly what happened in Sixers Nets Game 3 when both Jimmy Butler and Jared Dudley were ejected for escalating an altercation between Joel Embiid and Jarrett Allen after Embiid hit Allen in the face yet again. Guys, were those 76ers Nets ejections warranted or nah? What you got?
I think so. I think so because you escalated it and it spilled into the crowd.
Is that the only reason? Is that the only reason, honestly, that they got tossed? If it doesn't go into that first row in the Barclays Center,
I think Dudley gets ejected because Joel Embiid fouled Jarrett Allen hard, but no one around there, Karis LeVert, he's got a very, very close look at that, and he didn't overreact, or he didn't even get in Joel's face. And to me, that wasn't even a flagrant foul. That was a good, hard playoff foul.
Right.
He hit him, no doubt, but when Dudley comes in and then Jimmy Butler sort of pushes him, I think the referees have to say, you know what, Dudley has to go, and then Butler kind of did the same thing by shoving Dudley, and then everyone sort of just spills in. But credit to Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons as well, because they didn't let that get completely out of hand in there, even though there was a lot of people coming in their face. So I think
Joel Embiid just kept doing this.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm not doing anything. Not doing anything.
So I'm okay with that. Yeah, I think the flagrant one should have been rescinded, but the ejections I'm okay with.
Jared Dudley ran as hard as he possibly could. Did you see him there? He could have got called for speeding. He ran so fast to hit him. Yes, he look at him go. Look at him. He's going to go 100 miles per hour. Look at him at the three-point line. Look how fast he's going. Yes, of course. He should get tossed because he did come in. He did sprint in and get in there. I think he's sort of compensating a little bit for not reacting in Game 1.
100%.
For Game 2, when Embiid hit Jared Allen.
You're saying this is on Channing Frye.
Yeah, Channing Frye was on last week's show. That's
smack him.
exactly what he said.
His team, should have reacted somewhat. Jared Dudley wasn't on the floor at that point, but somebody should have said something to him. So that's why Dudley sprints in there. And Lee's right about it not escalating into anything. But this situation here, I think it's because Jared Allen sort of just pops up really quickly and was tough as nails that the Nets didn't really, maybe didn't even see what happened because Jared Allen popped up so quickly. How does a man pop up that fast from that? So I understand, but all the talk afterwards, I think, just made Jared Dudley and the Nets a little bit more upset than they were at that moment. So they kind of overcompensated for it. You got to toss them, and nothing really happened into the crowd, which is astonishing.
Yeah, Trey, you're the only true official that matters here. What's the answer?
I think it's warranted. I saw Jared Dudley speeding in from half court. That's the hardest I've seen him run all year. Moving on, get your brooms ready because they got a couple of potential sweeps going down on TNT tonight. Bucks and Pistons kick things off from Detroit at 8 p.m. Eastern. They're followed by the Rockets and Jazz in Utah at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Guys, both teams are up 3-0, but who is more likely to end the series tonight? The Bucks or the Rockets? What you got?
I think this is an interesting question, too, because when you look at the Game 3s, you had the star players on both teams that ultimately won, Milwaukee and Houston. Their guys, Giannis and Harden, had bad games, and they still won the game. I mean, it says a lot about their squad, like their full squad, but I guess I'm going to pick the Bucks as more likely to end the series because I have a lot more faith in the Jazz team of putting it all together for one night. I might even want to say both are going to win and close their series out tonight, but if I have to pick one, I'm going to say Milwaukee for sure does because that was a regular season game that they played in Game 3 in Detroit.
Right.
That's all it was.
I agree. The Jazz locker room seems to be a little bit more together. If you heard the post-game press conference, the post-game interviews, Kyle Korver was defending Donovan Mitchell and saying that he is really taking ownership of this team as a young player. And so that bodes well, I think, for the locker room and the team going out on the floor for Game 4 in a very, very difficult game to win when they essentially know that this is, this series is over.
At some point.
But the other one looks over.
Yeah,
the Pistons looks
the
real
The
dark.
Bucks are home tonight. There's no doubt about that. Utah, though, I mean, James Harden misses 15 straight shots and they can't win that game.
I know. That's going to be demoralizing.
That has to be, because
right.
and James Harden got to the free throw line. He did other things.
Yeah.
And Donovan Mitchell had a chance, of course, to tie the game up.
Great look.
Great look.
And Korver talked about that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those ones. It's a make or miss league.
A little too open.
Yeah,
perhaps.
maybe, But that's the thing for the Jazz. Like, this was the game. If they were going to get back in the series, they had to win on Saturday night. They couldn't do that. They can maybe extend the series, but very tough to see them getting
You
back.
think a gentleman's sweep could be in play in that Houston-Utah series. But you say Bucks is ending tonight.
Yeah.
Trey, what's the answer?
I'm going to go with the Bucks as well.
All right.
But if the Pistons come back, I will do this show nude.
Wow, all right.
Let's go, Pistons.
Yeah, come on, Pistons!
Why not?
When we come back, we're going to discuss Westbrook's media standoff and the Celtics sweeping the Pacers. Lots more from the come.
The Starters is presented by Jack Daniel's Old No. 7 and Tennessee Honey.
Welcome back to the Starters. It's time for some fill-in-the-blank fun. Everybody's got markers. Let's do this.
Let's get into it. Only one team thus far has punched their ticket to the second round, and that's the Boston Celtics, who finished off a sweep of the Pacers in Indiana yesterday. Kyrie and the gang have been saying all year that they just need to get to the postseason, and it sure seems like they flipped the switch. So guys, fill in the blank. The Celtics sweep was blank.
Encouraging. It really was, because we didn't know what sort of team we were going to get here with the Celtics. They've been up and down all season long, like Trey said, little roller coaster rides. But what you saw in this series, against a very scrappy Pacers team, no Oladipo, of course, but they played great defense, the Celtics did. They were engaged on that end of the floor. You had Kyrie Irving playing the role as a closer. Gordon Hayward looked solid. Even the guys that are filling in for Marcus Smart, who we thought, wow, that could be a bit of an issue without him now in there. But you had Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier doing their parts, like sort of two guys playing the part of one guy. This is encouraging moving into the second round against what will be a much more difficult team.
I agree. I used a very similar word in promising. They have flipped the switch somewhat. I think their defense is going to have to be better than it was against the Pacers, against the Bucks. They'd have to do it for longer stretches of time.
Yeah.
They chilled out against the Pacers to some degree, but it definitely was a lot better. Gordon Hayward, I think, is important. The way they finished Game 4 was Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward just taking turns basically being playmakers, and Gordon Hayward looked awesome.
Yeah.
And if those two guys can both play make, and you have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown most likely around them to shoot, along with Al Horford setting picks, that's nice. He had a really great fourth quarter. And we talked about it, the way he ended his season. If that's the plan, then that's a great fourth quarter finishing lineup.
I went with impressive. Another positive spin on this one. But really, what went wrong for Boston in this series? Nothing. They all played well. Kyrie was the star that he sort of has claimed to be throughout the season and showing his experience. There was no drama. There's no infighting. But it wasn't just like they blew Indiana off the court either.
The Pacers had the lead in 3 of the 4 games at halftime.
Right.
Yeah.
And they've still got Marcus Smart to come back into this team, Boston. So, and you know what? There was no attention on them as well. Everyone else is looking around other series.
Drama-free.
Boston goes back home now. They get a good 4 or 5 days maybe before they have to go to Milwaukee to start that series. So I think things couldn't have been better really for Brad Stevens and the Celtics.
Trey, our next one.
Russell Westbrook may have an MVP in his trophy case, but he probably won't be winning the Cooperation with Media Award anytime soon.
Could you tell he had a little extra in his step tonight trying to play against his old pals?
Next question.
Is that a good sign for the rest of the playoffs?
Next question.
What happened that sort of reversed the tone of this game?
Next question.
How did it change when he got going in the third quarter?
It's a good question. Not sure.
What do you remember that it takes when you're down 3-1 to emotionally and mentally pull out a series like that?
I really don't know. But
Fill in the blank. Russell Westbrook's media standoff is blank.
Petty.
Petty.
Yeah, it's silly. It's silly, Russ. This is
Just him holding this grudge with
yeah,
Barry Trailing?
because you know what? I understand that there is at times a beef between players and media, but the fact that he's showing no respect whatsoever to the questions that are fair questions and holding on to that sort of grudge, it reflects badly not only on him but on the entire organisation. Because up until Sunday, when he finally started to at least give us a few words,
Right.
clearly no one at the organisation said anything to him. Maybe they're afraid to, but someone had to say something to him because it just looks stupid that he won't even respond to the most meaningless question that's coming his way. And so he has to be better than that. He's an MVP, he's a leader. Kids look up to him. I understand if he has a problem, but he can't behave like that. He just looks like a child.
Yeah, to be clear, he's speaking about or to one reporter directly, and Barry Trailing,
Right.
and not answering his questions. And it's been that way for a long period of
Right.
time, but it's being highlighted here in the postseason. It's Easter Sunday. Just forgive in this scenario. But I put dangerous because not necessarily just for Russell Westbrook, but I'm thinking, big picture here. Game 3, Russ did that next question. Paul George was asked a question about dunking at the end of the game. He pulled out the next question.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Well, what if this snowballs? And Steve Kerr had a lot of comments when he talked to Ethan Strauss of The Athletic about this, basically saying this league is very popular because players are very accessible. And there is that back and forth. Even if it's just meaningless, pointless answers,
Right.
there are answers being given. And they're accessible 24 hours a day on social media and in these press conferences just by giving answers. So if it's deemed that these players don't want to talk and are petty and just don't want to give that or do that part of the job, that could lead to people not loving the NBA as much as they do.
People would sour
Definitely.
on them. Absolutely.
Exactly. So that's why it's a slippery slope for me.
That's why I just went with embarrassing. I don't need to add much more than what you guys said, because Steve Kerr called it dangerous. Barkley called it unprofessional. I think it's just embarrassing. It's just an embarrassing look, I think, for Russ and for the organization. That's all. I get, again, that it is that beef between that one guy, and it's a grudge that a lot of people don't even really know why. I mean, some things were obviously written that Westbrook wasn't happy with, but this was a long time ago. Let bygones be bygones here. You'd think these are grown men. They could figure it out and just move on and both do their jobs, but they're obviously holding on to it here, Westbrook is. All right. It's a weird one. Trey, final one.
All right, Klay Thompson hadn't been himself to start the playoffs, so on Saturday, it was C-ball season.
I told Jonas yesterday, we went to the beach, played some volleyball. I'm like, I'm just going to go jump in the ocean. I just know that will reset my mind, and it worked.
Throw on your trunks and let me know who else needs a reboot by filling in the blank. Blank needs a playoff reset.
Joe Harris, my man Joe Harris. He led the regular season in three-point shooting. He won the three-point title at All-Star Weekend. But this guy, after a great first quarter in Game 1 of his series against the Sixers, hasn't hit a three. That's what he's out there to do.
Yeah.
So he would like a little reset, I'm sure, here.
Danilo Gallinari of the Clippers. What happened to that cocky rooster? He's had his best season of his career. He's not strutting around like he used to.
Joe Ingles, unfortunately, he's been struggling for the Jazz. Can't hit a shot right now. Hasn't played the great defense either, but he'll be back. There's still 4 games to go in this series.
Wow, you better not ask Joe Ingles a question. He's going to next question you. He's gonna snub you, man. All right, when we come back, weekend whoopsies. Time for some weekend whoopsies, the hoops and the bloops.
Pacers Thaddeus Young, a whoopsie layup.
Whoa.
That's a clunker.
Yeah. Got to blow in your hand or something after that.
Yikes. This one's a weird one here from Aaron Gordon, very, very late in the game. He's supposed to be inbounding the ball here. He's like, nah, whatever, I'm just going to shoot it.
Hey, it's hard to get an open shot against Kawhi.
That's right.
Russell Westbrook loses the ball, but it goes right through Rodney Hood's legs. He picks it up and scores.
So who gets the whoopsie there? Is that Rodney Hood?
I guess Rodney Hood.
Whoopsie A, whoopsie B. Yeah, Rodney. Good for Rodney.
Very strange. Sticking with that game, everybody knows how Russ likes to do the rock the baby to sleep celebration. Schroeder taking it to the next level. Got the towel as the baby. Felton getting in on the fun. Ooh, too bad they're down 3-1.
Greg Popovich, normally a man of few words, but this is on another level.
Do we have any questions?
Thank you.
Pop's favorite press conference of his career.
He finally broke him.
Oh, this is a strange play here from DeMar DeRozan. He got called for the charge. He is not happy, so he zips the ball at Scott Foster. Cost him $25,000 for that.
Worth it.
Another weird shot from in close here. D'Angelo Russell short arms this one.
Ooh.
He looks at his hand late.
Yeah, that's smart.
Little
That's a
T-Rex
vet move. Yeah.
Whoops. We had some great work from assistant coaches this weekend. We had the 76ers Nets getting into it. Look at this assistant coach flying. Down goes coach. His phone goes flying. Why did his phone pop it?
He's trying to take a selfie
Whoa.
or something.
Hope you got insurance.
The Nets' Karis LeVert hits a shot in James Ennis's eye. So as James Ennis goes down the floor, the Nets' Theo Pinson from the bench gets right up in that grill, and it continues during the play. He's right up in there, getting in James Ennis's head, of all people.
Ed Davis had to stand up so he could actually see.
Had a little, I don't know, a little fracas here. About to break out between the Bucks and the Pistons. Bucks assistant coach Taylor Jenkins jumps up to prevent any of his players from leaving the bench.
That's why the Bucks have got the best ranked defense this season.
That's right.
Well done. Klay Thompson is hilarious, especially when he is not trying to be.
On a day that Steph doesn't put up big numbers, that you guys still just handle your business.
Oh, it's strength in numbers, you know? It's right here. Strength in numbers.
That's upside down.
My bad.
Finally, Raptors coach Nick Nurse giving us one of the greatest reactions in a playoff game of all time. He holds this look
Wow.
for 10 seconds, just in complete
Still going.
disbelief. We might see that later in the week in meme feed. I have a feeling. More starters when we return.
Welcome back to the show. Happy to have on a man who's been around the NBA for 30 years, one-time NBA head coach of the year, most recently a head coach with Minnesota Timberwolves. Tom Thibodeau, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. We were talking about it in the office today. It feels like forever ago that you were with the Minnesota Timberwolves when you parted ways in January. Does it feel that way to you?
Yeah, it does. You know, when you look back, you go from having no time at all to now you know you have all kinds of time. So it's relaxing, it's fun, and you know you're watching the games, but you don't have an invested interest in any of them, other than you want to see your friends win.
Right.
So that's like the main thing. So, but it's been enjoyable, and it's a chance to recharge and spend time with family and friends and do that sort of thing. So you try to take advantage of that.
Well, let's talk about those games. It's the best time of year.
Yeah.
Celtics took care of business in the first round. You know, barring anything crazy, they're likely to play the Milwaukee Bucks in round 2. How do you see the Celtics faring in that matchup?
Well, I think the Celtics really had a terrific season when you look at it from start to finish, and the way they finished the season. In that series against Indiana, and I thought Nate McMillan did a terrific job with his team, particularly when Victor Oladipo went down. And those games were tough. But I think at the end of the regular season, Boston played Indiana twice and played very well in both of those games. And I think that sort of got them going. They have great depth. They were a top 5 defensive team all year. And I thought their offense really came around towards the end of the season. And if they do end up playing Milwaukee, and obviously Milwaukee's had an unbelievable season, and they have a top 5 offense, top 5 defense. So I think it'll be a terrific matchup. I like the depth of Boston. I like the experience of Boston.
Right.
I think the way Boston can shoot threes and the way Boston covers the three-point line is probably the one thing that's in their favor.
Do you like their chances, for the sounds of it?
I do.
For at least a very solid series. It should be great. Well, we're going to see tonight if the Rockets can close out the Jazz, moving over to the Western Conference. One thing we've been talking about throughout this entire series, everybody's been talking about it, is the interesting defensive strategy that Quinn Snyder and the Jazz have tried to put in place to try and slow James Harden. That's to sit on that left hip, force him right, force him into the help, but he's been dissecting him. What's your take on, first, that strategy that they've tried here, and is there a better strategy that you can think of as a defensive guru to try and slow a guy like James Harden?
Well, I think when you look at what they're trying to do, and it's a very interesting strategy, and they're a terrific defensive team, they're trying to take the shots away from him that he would like to get to. However, I think it says a lot about James, the way he's been able to get to the free throw line, 16 free throws in the last game, and also his penetration deep into the paint, which has gotten them the dunks to Capella.
Yeah.
And those are the type of shots you're looking for. So I think what they believe in their system is, you know, how many threes can we get, how many free throws can we get, and how many shots inside the restricted can we get. And I think James probably doesn't get enough credit. I love the way he played in the last game because I think it says a lot about who he is as a player. he played a great game without shooting the ball well. He created a lot of great scoring opportunities for them with layups inside the restricted. He got to the free throw line 16 times. He had 6 steals. But the important thing, I think, when you look at his overall play, is he had the poise and presence of mind to play great in the fourth quarter. And when he needed to make those shots to score 14 points, he did it all. He never got rattled. He just played his game. He kept going. And that's sort of what he did at the beginning of the season when Chris was out. And see, the other thing, unfortunately for Utah, and Utah's had a terrific season, and it's not over until you get 4. I don't think Houston is a true, a 4 seed. I think when you look at their season and the way they started with Chris being out, Houston is really probably a 2 seed.
Yeah, like a 60-win team like they were last season. Or overall.
Yeah, they're playing incredibly well. They, sort of like the Celtics, barring anything going crazy in the Warriors-Clippers series, are on a collision course with those Golden State Warriors to face them one more time. How do you see that series faring?
Yeah, I think with the Warriors, that championship experience, they have so many weapons. Like if one guy is off, you still have, Steph, or you have Clay, or you have Kevin. And then the thing that probably, no one really talks about a lot is Draymond is so unique and what the things he brings to the team. But Bogut's passing is huge for that team as well. And I thought the pickup of DeMarcus was huge for that team. I think when you coach against DeMarcus, you have to game plan. There's so many guys that you have to game plan for on their team that's what makes them so special, and their experience. I think when they get in tight situations, they know how to handle those. And I think their defense has always been overlooked. Their defensive field goal percentage throughout the course of the season was terrific. So, and then when you look at what Andre Iguodala brings to the team and Livingston brings to the team, this team has it all. So until someone proves that they can beat them 4 times, I think you cannot overlook that team based on what they've done.
Yeah, for sure. Looking at the Coach of the Year sort of landscape, feels like there's been an unbelievable amount of solid candidates this year. Budenholzer with the Bucks, Doc Rivers, Michael Malone, Kenny Atkinson, Steve Clifford, Nate McMillan with the Pacers. Who would you pick if you have to pick one?
I'm not picking one.
Who's in your top 3? I mean, no, it's a difficult decision.
You're making a great point, and depending on how you view it, I think when you look at what Doc has done, you'd have to put him up there to do what he did with that team, particularly after making those trades. I think the way Nate coached that team, particularly when Victor went down, I think Mike Malone, fantastic job. I don't think you could overlook Steve Clifford and the job that he did, particularly the second half of that season. That team steadily got better throughout the course of the year. And, of course, what Bud has done in Milwaukee, you have to give him a lot of credit. But there's so many guys that have done a terrific job. And, this will sound crazy, but I think the job that Brad's done in Boston, you can't overlook that either. That was not an easy situation because getting Kyrie back and getting Gordon Hayward back made it more difficult. They had more players in the rotation, and then you have to sell the willingness to sacrifice for each other, and I think they're doing that now, but I think he's managed that as well as you can.
Right, even though fans go, well, you got more talent, you should win more games, but there's a lot more to it than that, like you're saying, with the egos and stuff like that. You got to keep in check and the shot.
But I had a couple other guys in there.
You named every coach.
You named 30 coaches. Let's get to your coaching for a second. You recently told the On the Mark podcast that you're ready to get back into coaching. There's a few positions that are available out there, the Lakers, Cavs, and Grizzlies. As far as you're concerned, what's the most appealing one of those 3?
Well, and again, like you look at situations, and if the right opportunity does come along, I'll certainly look to jump back into it. I love to coach. I love the competition. I love the camaraderie of being around the team, the teaching that goes on, just every aspect of it, to be honest with you. And so I think there's 30 jobs. They're very difficult to get. And I think they all present different challenges. And so if you get a younger team, you're talking about development and how do you build the winning culture. If you get a team that's on the cusp of winning a championship, then it's a different approach for that team. So I think all the jobs are attractive. I think things can change very quickly in this league when you look at player development, you look at the draft, and then you look at free agency, a team that was good the previous year, all of a sudden they can make a big jump very quickly. And then sometimes you look at a team like Orlando, and they're a great example. of a team that got better throughout the course of the year. And you look at a guy like Jonathan Isaac, and then you look at Toronto, and again, Nick Nurse is another guy that needs to be mentioned. Terrific year. But Siakam, the way he came into the league as a defensive player, and it sort of reminds me of Isaac and what he's doing in Orlando. Each year they've got, and we all tend to forget that. Like, I know when Jimmy Butler came to Chicago, he came in as a defensive player, and he got into the rotation, and basically he started that way, and then he became, each year he got a lot better, and he became who he is today. And the same thing, you look at a Kawhi Leonard, and you look at his career, you forget about the steps that he took along the way to get to where he is.
One quick question about the Jimmy Butler scenario in Minnesota. How did that affect the locker room when he made that trade demand?
Well, I think it's the reality of the NBA today. I think we're seeing it more and more where, guys are changing teams and they want the situations that they want. So, whatever comes your way, you have to handle it. And so Jimmy's a great player. I thought he did a lot of great things for us in Minnesota last year. And when you look at the impact that he had on the franchise, to make the playoffs for the first time in 14 years, we had the second best record in the West. I think we were 27-10 in the games that he played in the West. So he helped us change the culture there. And so every year he's gotten better. I think he'll continue to get better. And he brought the best out in people. So I thought it was necessary for us to change where we were. When you haven't been in the playoffs in that amount of time, you need guys that can help you win. I thought Derrick Rose helped us in a lot of ways. I thought Taj Gibson helped us. Jeff Teague helped us a lot. We had a number of guys that helped change the culture there.
Some experience. Well, Coach, can't thank you enough for swinging by.
Thank you. Thanks
really
for having
appreciate
me.
It.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, enjoy your time off.
Where it all happens.
Take a break. When we come back, Lily, Coach would love this. He's going to hit us with a very solid play. Just an X's and O's solid play. So we'll have to stick around for this one. Oh, there it is. I love it.
Happy Earth Day.
We asked you what's your favorite random fan. What do you got, Trey?
People sent in the classics, like the Lakers guy. Not to be outdone. How about the Lakers throwing out the glasses? But this was crazy, guys. I had no idea I would be getting cheesed.
Oh, my God.
What a random fan right there. Cheeve himself.
Oh, you got cheeved, man.
Shout out to the Happy Wedge as well.
All right, Lily, VSP.
Yeah, we're going down to Orlando for a beautiful one here from the Raptors. Now, check out this from Marc Gasol. It's not a shame-worn leggy. Instead, it's the flipper. Watch that one. Beautiful. It's not done. Lowry to Pascal to Danny Green. Too much room. That's beautiful. That's what I call a very solid play.
We didn't even talk about the Raptors tonight.
Wedgie number 43 on the season happened. It was a quickie on a foul. Draymond Green driving. Gets hacked, tosses it up. Going to the line, still a shot attempt, so it's entirely fine.
Let's count it.
Would have counted if it dropped. Number 43 on this season.
First one of the playoffs.
Mhm.
Seven to go. All right, tomorrow, Tuesday, we'll have a brand new edition of our Drop podcast for you. Subscribe to the starters on Apple Podcasts or wherever you subscribe and download your podcast. We'll get it up as soon as possible. That's it for us tonight. We're back tomorrow, I believe at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. I have no idea when it comes to the playoff schedule. We'll see here.
All right, thanks for joining us, folks. And remember, plant a tree so birds can build a nest.
It's our new pick 'em payoff. We got to do that. Embrace the night, people.
Yeah, yeah. Tricky.